Hi, I'm Josh from Posh, and we've been known to do our wine pairings quite frequently and to pour lots of interesting, unique, and never before seen types of wine. Now, I'm going to take a little time and go through a series of wine classes. Look, I'm not the ultimate wine genius, but I just want to debunk some myths and make it easier for you to understand and be more interested in what you're being poured. After all, there's a lot to learn when it comes to wine. Countries, languages, millions of different kinds of grapes. So today we're going to start off and we're going to do the first deductive process of learning about wine, and that is Old World versus New World. Well, what does that mean? Well, Old World wines is a description a lot of wine people use to describe wines that were made in Europe when wine began and have historically been stylistically different than New World wines, which were wines that are made in America and Australia, both appeasing two different types of palates. So we're going to talk first about what that means with different wines. Now I have here two wines, both from France. So you're thinking to yourself, well, they must be Old World, but that's not correct. Because just like any new market, there are places in France that have tried to catch on and sell to Americans. And so they're making a much more modern style of wine, whereas there's also places in France that are sticking to their old-fashioned ways and making Old World style of wines. We're going to address them first with a Chardonnay. This Chardonnay is made in the south of France. It's called Mailloux, and this is 100% new oak, southern France, warm growing climate. Very similar to Napa Valley as far as weather and temperature. And so the style of this wine, despite the fact that it is from France, is notably oakier with the use of new oak. It's noticeably creamier with the use of malolactic fermentation, and has that big, rich, oaky feel that a lot of people like. I'm not an expert on this, but I believe that in the early days of the wine industry from the 70s through the 80s in the United States, alcohol was always served as a cocktail regardless of what it was. Whether it was a beer, whether it was wine, whether it was a cocktail itself, it was standalone and drinking. Standalone and drink, standalone and drink. So why did California winemaking style evolve to oakier wines with creamier mouthfeel? Because if you're drinking this by itself, you don't want a light, elegant, pretty little wine. If all you're having is a glass of wine while you're sitting around talking to people, that bigger mouthfeel, that bigger sense of oak, that bigger sense of alcohol is more appealing while you're drinking it by itself. Now here's the kiss of death for the Old World wines. Especially a lot of times people complain about French wines being too acidic or being too delicate or being too gentle. A lot of the Old World style of wines were made to go with a meal. Wine in most of Europe was drunk with a meal, not as a cocktail. So a lot of these wines are actually lower in alcohol, almost never have sugar, are given oak treatment or not oak treatment depending upon the regions and some of the laws, and that acid kind of helps them intertwine into the food a little better. And obviously it's going to be a region to region difference. But when we're looking at a red, and this is a Bordeaux, Bordeaux can be divided into two sides. There's the left bank and the right bank. On the left bank, they're predominantly Cabernet, and on the right bank, they're predominantly Merlot. That has to do with soil, it has to do with weather, for the reason that different places, grapes are grown in different places. But the style when you're drinking Bordeaux will differ from village to village, but predominantly Old World. These are wines that are given gentle oak treatment, but enough to stand up to the body that they have. Generally have a tendency to be lower in alcohol, 12.5% to 13%, versus a lot of times 14 to 14.5% to start with for California wines. And then wines like Zinfandel that produce naturally more sugars, therefore more higher alcohol content, might be in the 15.5 range, almost getting up to that level of port. So what we notice when we drink this is it's leaner. You think of, in a red wine, when you think of acid, you think of leanness, muscularity, but not necessarily tannic. You're not thinking of sweet, rich, kind of cooked fruit. This is a little more gentle, ripe, raw fruit, dark, blackberry, blueberry, a little bit of tobacco. And it all elegantly kind of balances in together. No one element jumps out at you. It doesn't have a monsterly strong, any sort of sweet finish anywhere along the line. So if you're wanting to start and learn stylistically what kind of a wine drinker you are, sometimes you can say, besides, well, I'm a white wine drinker or I'm a red wine drinker, you could say, I'm a New World drinker versus an Old World drinker. And that will help you start learning more about what wines are made for you and what you like, and help you enjoy wine more. Cheers and have a great day.